Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today I have a special edition of Breakthrough Walls, very unconventional. In fact, I'll probably turn my camera off just to save on some bandwidth so we can hear my guest clearly. If you would do me a favor, I see Cody is already in here and he has shared it out. Thank you, Cody. I appreciate that. So I have a gentleman joining us today from a state prison in the wonderful state of New York. And his name is Dexter Taylor, and he's going to tell his story. So let me go ahead and just bring Dexter up to stage. There is a delay, by the way, everybody. So you will hear a delay between when I say something and Dexter answers. It's just the way it is. So please share this out everywhere, far and wide. Dexter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Great to be on with you.
Yeah, man, it's great to have you here. I I was on a another show with you with Kay Daly, and I said, "Geez, man, let's get you on my show and um, tell everybody your story." I have a pretty big audience, so I want to start with you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, like where you were born and raised. It sounds like you've got a deep Southern South Texas accent going on there.
No, not at all. Thanks, definitely. yeah, so, yeah, I was born in New York City in the borough of Queens. Born to working class immigrants. Um, my dad is a carpenter, union carpenter. My mother's a registered nurse. They're both retired now. Um, and was always a kind of nerdy kid. Right? I was the kid who was always taking his toys apart and kind of making new stuff with it. So always nerdy, always big into math and science, always with my head in the book. Um, Fast forward to many years later, after I'd gone away to school. Well, I went to Southeastern High School, got into Johns Hopkins, dropped out after a year or so, and bounced around Baltimore City for a while until I got into computers. And I taught myself how to write code. C++ was my first language. So I taught myself how to write C++, and got my first job in the industry, moved back to New York in 1994. So a 30 some odd year career in the software development industry. Um,
Okay.
and I've always been a kind of a shade tree mechanic in my adult life. Building my own furniture, electrical wiring, light plumbing, all the rest of that stuff. I've built 3 recording studios, the third of which is still operational. Um, and the backstory to all this is that I was lifelong. I wouldn't say lifelong Democrat because I never had that much use for the Democratic Party, but I was definitely a lifelong lefty slash kind of angry young progressive until until I started leaving the left, and that's a whole story we can dig into. In any case, um, by the time I got into gunsmithing, I'd already been doing conservative politics online as Card and Mike for a few years. In 2020, I got into gunsmithing. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I saw these guys online buying legal parts and who had bought legal parts, that is, and who were machining them to completion, 80% receivers, machining them to completion and building actual firearms. And I was hooked. So I went and started doing the same thing. Bought legal 80% and other parts, machined them to completion in my basement machine shop, because of course I had a machine shop in my basement.
Right,
And
like who doesn't have
I was
that,
off to the
right?
races. Exactly. That's basic. Well, that basic American man equipment. You understand? You
Right.
got to have that, right? So, so, so yeah, man. I built 5 or 6 Glock style pistols and 8 very sexy AR rifles, and all that time, I already had a clean criminal record. Never been in trouble with the law. I was a licensed amateur radio operator. I went and passed a background check to become a member in good standing of my local gun range, West Side Rifle and Pistol Range in Manhattan. And my plan was to actually build this into a career, right? Because I saw right away that I could. This is something where I could take my love of software and signals processing and circuits and what have you, and kind of marry that to my love of weapon science. Anyway, in 2022, my house was raided. I joined NYPD ATF task force. Basically, the SWAT team busted my door down, um, took all my stuff and locked me up. Uh, my parents bailed me out of jail, out of Rikers Island. They had to put their house up because bail reform didn't apply to someone with a clean criminal record who had never hurt anybody. So they had to, my
Wow.
bail was almost $250,000. Yeah, my bail was almost a quarter of a million
Hold it.
dollars, bro.
Hold it. $4 million was your bail?
No. Sorry, almost $250,000. Almost
Oh,
a
a
quarter of a
quarter of
million.
a million. I was
Yeah,
like, what in the world,
yeah,
man? Jeez.
yeah. No. Yeah. It's almost $250,000. My parents had to put their house up to get me out, and thank God we got a good legal team, and we started fighting. Very early on, I told my legal team I wasn't going to take any plea deals, and I didn't. Um, but yeah, after that, we had a long, drawn out pre-trial process. And, the trial was more or less, as we knew going in, the trial was more or less rigged. And so we lost, and the judge sentenced me to 10 years in prison. And here I am. And by the way, after I was convicted, after the jury came back with a guilty verdict, um, there was no, okay, you're out on bail until sentencing. There was, you'll be remanded immediately into custody because, again, even though I have a clean criminal record, no trouble with the law, apparently um, I'm a flight risk, a risk to public safety, right? Because I've lived in New York my whole life, and
Wow.
none of the weapons ever left my house, right? Exactly. So, this to give you some idea of the kind of the raw politics behind what actually happened in my trial. It was obviously very political. The Brooklyn DA had gone in front of hot mics and made prejudicial statements long before my trial began. Right. So that's what we were dealing with. In any case, we of
Wow.
course continued fighting, and I continue fighting to this day. Me and my legal team and my kind of trusty band of conservatives um, on social media. We're continuing to fight because we think it's an important fight. We think this is not an edge case, right? This is not even close to being an edge case. It's not a complicated matter, like at all, right? It's
Right.
very,
Right.
very, very simple, right? I wasn't arrested in my car, right? I wasn't arrested walking down, 42nd Street with my AR slung, right? I wasn't throwing a howitzer through Central Park, right? I was in my home, and the question, in my opinion, the question before us, especially as conservatives, but certainly as Americans, is this: does the Second Amendment safeguard the right to keep and bear arms in your own house? As a law-abiding
Yeah,
citizen who's never been in trouble.
well, so let's back up just a little bit and
Yes, sir.
let's talk about you. I'm were you gainfully employed at the time of the raid? Were you working somewhere? What were you doing?
Oh, oh yeah, oh yes, oh yes. So I was working for a startup company. Who
Wow.
I'll refrain from naming them for now. But yeah, I was working for a very cool startup. They were trying to do for the freight rail industry what we take for granted with carriers like FedEx, which is to put all the information, tracking and stuff like that on one pane of glass for dispatchers and for shipping managers and so on and so forth. So that so that you could go and you could open up an app on your desktop and be like, okay, where is my two carloads of Canadian spruce right now?
Right, right,
And
right.
the railroads have actually they've quietly been installing all this telemetry and electronics over the years, but no one before this company, no one was ever trying to put all that information on one pane of glass. So I was their senior data engineer, and I basically rebuilt their technical infrastructure, redesigned and rebuilt their databases, and wrote all the software to kind of crunch all that incoming information, all the telemetry and other data from the different railroads, so that our applications and analytics guys could like take it and put it
Right.
on the customers. And I love
So
it. I just love that.
I think that you're geeking out on me here.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
kidding.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
I'm kidding. No, so I mean, dude, if I were in law enforcement on a federal or state level, one of the first people I would profile would be a senior data engineer. That would be the first person I like. What the heck, man? I'm kidding, of course. Good Lord, have mercy. So
Yeah.
here you are living your life. You're obviously a geek, and I love that. I've been coding since I was 11 years old, so I totally get it. Um, but so you're just like doing your thing, living your life. You have a family, right? You have a wife and kids.
I'm divorced. I have a daughter and an ex-wife, and
Okay.
thank God we're on good terms. My ex-wife, has brought my kid up to see me, while I was in Rikers and while I've been upstate. And me and my daughter and I are very close. We've always been. I've been, a continuous kind of presence in her life. Uh,
Wow, that's
even
awesome.
since I broke up with her mom. So yeah, we're all still close.
So you have, I mean, you're just living your life.
Did
You've
I
got a
lose your audio?
machine shop in your basement. By the way, everybody watching, um, he's only got Dexter has a 30-minute window. Then he has to hang up and call back in. And I'll
Check
just
one,
stay
two.
on here and entertain you while that happens.
Did I lose you, brother?
Um, but so talk about you said
Can I
you were
hear you?
making these. Can you hear me okay? Can you still hear me?
Check one, two. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Are you there? Check, check, check.
Now I can hear you. Now I
um
can hear you.
um
Can you hear me?
yeah, I hear you.
Check one, two. Okay. Yeah, your
Yeah,
audio went out for like 45 seconds or so.
I have no idea what happened there. um can everybody else hear me, or did it go out for everybody, or was it just for Dexter? Somebody let me know in the comments if you would. So you decided you were going to start making these firearms. Did it ever occur to you though, when you were making them, that like, wow, maybe this is against the law to do? I mean, did that thought ever occur to you? It doesn't sound like it did.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. That's why, by the way, that's why I bought all my weapons, not weapons, weapons parts, all my receivers, my barrels, springs, so on and so forth. I bought those all online legally under my own name, shipped directly to my house. I even put them all on the same credit card to make my bookkeeping simpler. It never occurred to me in a million years that was illegal. Why would it be? I'm not a prohibited person. I'm not carrying weapons in the streets. And look, I have some issues, by the way, with New York's permitting regime. You know, I like many of our conservative brethren, I prefer a shall issue or even a constitutional shall issue permitting or even a constitutional carry regime to what we have in New York, which is neither of those things, obviously.
Right.
But it never occurred to me in a million years that again, being a non-prohibited person, right? Being someone who doesn't have a criminal record, it never occurred to me that building firearms in your house privately was illegal. Why would it be? It is a fundamental. To me, it doesn't get any more fundamental than that. Like the right to keep and bear arms in your house privately, quietly. You know,
right.
So no, absolutely not.
I mean, it seems like a you know, I guess the argument could be made that there are other things that you can't have in the privacy of your home, right? And I'm just being a little bit of the devil's advocate. I totally support everything about you. I think you know that. But there are other things that are definitely a crime to have in your house. But I mean, the right to keep and bear arms is covered by the U.S. Constitution, and I believe they call that the Second Amendment.
That's right. It's even covered by the New York State Constitution. Although they may have the progressives who we've allowed to run our state and cities into the ground may have amended that to within an inch of its life, but it is covered. According to my friends outside who've done some research for me, by even the New York State Constitution. Yes, I mean, yes, you're quite right. Like for example, like having, deciding that you want to collect explosives is going to be a problem unless you have a special type of FFO called SOT, Specialized Occupational Taxpayer certificate. But here's the funny thing. I mean, speaking of the feds. What's notable is that, remember, when I was raided, it was in April, I think early April, like April 5th, I believe, 2022. It was a joint NYPD ATF team. The ATF was there simply because they had driven the search warrant. That's what the ATF was doing in the days of the Biden administration, spying on American citizens and then turning that information over to local police jurisdictions. Now, the ATF came into my house, looked around, and they were like, okay, guys, see you. And we never heard from the ATF again. So there are no federal charges here. That's interesting, isn't it? Right? It's like, this guy had a...
Wow.
Right. The ATF had no interest in the case. None. Again, I remember as clear as day. There's two ATF agents. I remember they're windbreakers. And they came in, looked around, okay, guys, bye, and never heard from them.
And that was it. They left. The ATF left your house.
Yes, and they left. Yes, that was it. That was left my house and left our lives. Never to be heard from again. And never mind you, this was in the days of the Biden administration, where the ATF was jumping out on all kinds of stuff, right? So, trivial or otherwise, right? So if I had been doing something that was out of pocket with respect to federal law, right? They would have been on me like stupid on Kamala Harris. But the fact is that they did no such thing. They were gone, right? So yeah. This was New York State all the way. This was New York State's thing.
Okay, so you had federal agents coming in and looking around, seeing everything, and they were like, "Yeah, we don't see a problem here. We're out." and the state of New York decided otherwise.
Well, yeah, it was the state of New York from the beginning, because remember, all the feds were there to do was to drive the search warrant. They've been doing that. I don't know if they've continued under Trump, but they were doing that under Biden. They were basically going around to credit card companies and to parts manufacturers who sell online and saying, we want to see who's doing business with you. We want to see your customer list and so on and so forth. and then turning that information over to Second Amendment hostile jurisdictions like New York State. That was the thing. In fact, the NYPD has a special department uh, dedicated to liaising with ATF. So this is a thing. It's a process, right?
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. I mean, wow. So, holy crap, man. I don't like this, and here you are. How long have you been incarcerated now?
A little bit more than a year because my trial, I was out on bail during my trial, during the pre-trial, obviously during the trial, and then the trial took about a month, so call it end of April, or thereabouts, when when the trial came to a close, and then again immediately after the jury verdict, I was taken into custody, went to Rikers Island, and then that's it. I never breathed free air from that moment until today. So it's been a little more than a year. Um,
And
and it
this
gets
is
better, by the
okay.
way.
So
I
so
told you.
so hold on, hold on. Tell me this. At least you were violating a law. Maybe you were taking your homemade um, firearms and you were going outside on the rooftop or something and firing them into the air randomly, endangering the lives of your fellow humans. Right? Is that what you were doing? Is that what they got you on?
No, no, none of my weapons ever left my house, ever, and none of the weapons I built ever left my house, and um, nor was I advertising weapons. I wasn't talking about weapons. I wasn't taking it. You can go to my Instagram right now. My Instagram ID is Foundation Tech. Um, I wasn't taking pictures and posting them. I wasn't texting them. I wasn't talking to anyone online or in other capacity about weapons or about financial transactions. I wasn't transferring weapons. I had no intention of transferring. These were my weapons. I made them for me. And by the way, New York State knows this. New York State
Wow.
knows this because they seized my devices. They seized my phone. They seized my computer. They and they subpoenaed my email records. Right. So they know that this wasn't someone um, who was talking about who was intending to do business with firearms. Um, you know, who wasn't talking any crazy stuff about jumping out kinetically against the government. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. And none of my weapons had even been fired. The first time any of my weapons had been fired was after my arrest, when the police forensics team fired them in the test tank.
Because they wanted to see if they
That's
would.
when
They were checking to see if
they were
if
functional.
they were. Wow.
If they're functional, that's correct, right? Because they have to be a functional weapon. It gets crazier, by the way. It gets crazier. Um,
Wow.
the, um, the first prosecutor that was assigned to our case, the first assistant DA, said to my lawyer in writing that, quote, if Mr. Taylor had applied for a permit, he would have passed the good moral character test. So please don't take my word for it that I was an upstanding citizen. Take the prosecutor's word for it, right? Um,
Wow.
so yeah,
So
that's right.
so they and you said you were given 10 years. Is that what you said
Yes, sir. Yeah.
for being such
It was
a
no.
violent criminal? Wow.
Yeah, well, look, like I said, the fix was in because not long after I'd been indicted, the Brooklyn DA, like I said, came out and made prejudicial statements about my case in public. He said, "We're going to make an example of Dexter Taylor."
Wow.
This was before my trial even began, right? So he knew what the plan was exactly, you know.
This
And
this this sounds like it doesn't sound like you're living in the U.S. This sounds like more like the UK, maybe, or something.
Yeah, something or worse.
Like,
Right, exactly.
oh
Yes,
my God, man. That
yes,
okay?
yes.
So you good Lord, man. So you went through, and how long was the trial again? It was a jury trial, right? How long was the trial?
Like what, 2 to 3
You have
weeks?
1 minute
I think
left.
that. Yep, there's Minute Maid. All right, so I'm gonna have to drop and call back. But
Yeah, go ahead and call
yeah,
back in. I'll wait for sure. This is unbelievable. I want to get a lot of attention to this. Everybody share this out, and Dexter will join us here in a minute. I do have a video that I want to play, but
thanks, brother.
I'll wait. Yeah, no problem, man. Just call back in.
All right.
So I'm
The
gonna
call.
I'm gonna remove him for a minute, and he will be back in a minute. Let's see. Let's see. Okay. All right. So, do me a favor and please share this out. This is so important for people to hear this. This is I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It really doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care. You know, when you have, I mean, look, there are problems that we have in this country. We're all aware of them. I muted your microphone there, and there's music playing or something. You'll have to unmute when you bring Dexter back on. But so you know, we have problems in this country, and the problems obviously are legitimate. But there are people walking free that have caused harm to other human beings, like literally caused harm. And here we have Dexter, who's just a geek. He's just an engineer, and I'm a geek too, so I'm allowed to say that. But you know, like, and he's just doing something for fun. He's never even had a any kind of criminal record, nothing. And he's being treated like he's some kind of a violent thug. What is going on? What country? Here, my wife just said it. What country are we living in? I mean, this is insane. Kilburn says, "Ooh, now what? What's that mean? H-A, what's that mean? O-O, now H-H-W. I know what the WTF stands for." Cody says, "It doesn't matter if you're a 2A advocate. This can happen to any of your rights." And that is 100% the truth. If it can happen to um, Dexter, who's an upstanding citizen. By the way, I don't know if Dexter's back on yet or not. Let me request that they unmute. He's got a friend. Okay, are you back?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is crazy, man. Like, here, you're being treated like you're some kind of a violent. At least, okay, did they put you in some kind of a nice white collar prison?
No, this is a no. It's a Class A maximum security facility. Because remember, in New York State, right, merely possessing a firearm in your house without having asked the state for permission to keep and bear arms in your house, merely doing that is a violent felony.
What?
Okay. Yes, yes. Having a firearm without asking the state for permission is a violent felony. It's worse than that. According to New York State, I had loaded firearms in my house, and here's the thing: my lawyer explained to me when he came to visit me in Rikers, shortly after my arrest, that in New York State, if let's say you have a Glock, you've got a Glock on the table, and you've got the magazine's been dumped out, and there's nothing up the pipe. If you have compatible ammunition, let's say sitting on the table, according to New York State, that firearm is loaded. You see, according to New York State, like having compatible ammunition near a weapon means the weapon's loaded.
Okay, so question. This is kind of an obvious question. How is it that a state can override what our U.S. Constitution says?
That's a very good question. It's because they pay no political price for doing it. You see, the problem is that you can't, like an ordinary citizen, can't just take New York State to court for violating the Constitution because you wouldn't have standing, right?
Wow.
Because I'm in the situation I'm in, right now, I have standing to say, hey, my Second Amendment rights are being violated, but that presupposes that I'm already in trouble, already in prison, in other words, already being materially harmed by those unconstitutional laws. So that's it. And by the way, I'd just like to correct something you said. You said that I was treated like a violent criminal. Well, that's not quite true because, you see, New York has a very, how can I put this? New York State has a very soft and gentle way with violent criminals.
Yeah, that's true.
They like to let them out. They like to. I mean, I remember we were. I was talking with some of my people about cases that were in the news around the time of my trouble. There was one incident where a couple of people jumped the New York City police officer and beat the hell out of him on camera.
I remember it. Yep.
There you go. And what happened to those guys? I think one of them was released without bail. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Released without bail, and then he was in the wind. I don't know what happened to the other one, but you get the idea. There was a case. There was a case where an adjunct professor at Hunter College chased a cameraman down the street in the Bronx somewhere with a deadly weapon. Chased him down the street with a machete. This is also caught on camera. Traipses into the police precinct. Traipses out the same day. So, and then of course we don't know about if you heard the testimony that the governor of New York gave before Congress. That there have been a few incidents where violent criminals who happened not to have a legal immigration status were released. People with a history of violence were released to commit other crimes and in some cases take people's lives.
Right.
So, so yeah, they didn't treat me like a violent. If I'd been a violent criminal, I might have expected better treatment.
Right. You'd be a free man today. Like I don't, I find it. In fact, I find this so appalling and vile that it's leaving me with blank. Like, I don't even know what to ask you. It's insane. Like, how the hell is this happening in our country? How is this happening in the United States of America? And we have an upstanding citizen. You're the freaking senior data analyst for a railroad company or whatever it was called, and you're incarcerated for making firearms that never even left your house. That's crazy.
Correct.
And had never been fired.
Right. Exactly. Well, I can tell you how it happens. I can tell you exactly how this kind of thing happens. This is what happens when you allow liberals and progressives to have their way. I mean, I'm just being honest. That's what happens. Okay. We have, all across our country, when people talk about crime stats, for example, like how, America is a terrible place because of all these guns and the guns are the problem and it's the guns and that, most of the crimes that are committed with firearms are committed in the places that have the toughest gun laws, like New York, like
Yep.
Baltimore, Maryland, like Washington D.C., like Chicago, like East St. Louis, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's what we're
Yep.
looking at. So this is par for the course, right, for liberals and progressives, for the Democrats, for the modern, well, not even the modern, the Democrat Party, right? Um, they're going
Well,
to create a problem, and then they're gonna say, yeah, we know what the solution is. We have a solution to this problem we created, and the solution is no solution. But they're going to insist that, well, it's not working because we have to do it more. We have to do it harder. So you've taken away people's you refuse to recognize people's sacred right to armed self defense. And when that doesn't make a dent in crime, because surprise, surprise, criminals don't care what laws you write, right? You do it more. You add more. It's like, oh yeah, it's a minimum sentence for this because if you have a gun, he's going to get a minimum sentence, and they've given up on any idea of actually fighting crime. No, we're just going to fight these instruments, right? We're just going to fight these weapons because the weapons are a problem. Like, and I would
so
argue
so
that no, it's people running around hurting people with weapons. That's the problem.
it, I agree. I agree. I actually right next to me on my desk, I have a handmade knife that a friend of mine he makes knives. He just loves making them,
Beautiful.
and it's a gorgeous, gorgeous piece that he actually gifted me. And it's the sharpest knife I've ever owned, ever. And it could certainly cause harm to people, but that would be like I'm just sitting here going, what in the actual, what is going on? Like, what? And my wife is on here watching, and thank you, babe, for sharing this out. But like, why does anybody live there? And I listen. We talked about this before. I said I you were defending New York City, and rightfully so. You're from there. I got a whole story about my one time that I drove into Manhattan, and oh my God! But we'll talk about that later. But why does anybody even stay in New York with it's literally communism? This is crazy.
Well, I mean, look, our families are here, our lives are here. I mean, that's the thing. I built my career in New York City. I built my career in New York City. Um, I went from being a broke college dropout, right, to being a person with mad skill sets, who can go to different companies and name his price, you know. Um, you mentioned working. Yeah, I was working for this startup company. When I got raided, uh, they fired me maybe 2 to 3 weeks after I got indicted. Um, but before the end of my trial, um, I had actually received another job offer because, of course, my legal expenses were mounting. I had a give send go up already, but I wanted to work so that I could at least make some money while the trial was happening and kind of defray some of my costs. And I actually got a job offer. I got a job offer
Wow.
from a company. Well, I'll name them. They're called Cineverse, SYN Cineverse. Um, yeah, I interviewed their senior data person and the head of their data department, and she was impressed with my code. I took her on a tour of the tools I had written, my software development philosophy. She saw some of the training videos I had made for data engineers on YouTube, and yeah, they made me an offer. But then, of
Wow.
course, they had to rescind that offer because when they did a criminal background check, they found I had an active case, namely this one, right?
Wow.
Um, so that's the other thing. I'm an able-bodied man. I have skills. I can work. I can make a lot of money. You know what software developers can make, senior software developers can make.
Yeah.
But as it is now, my fellow New Yorkers, right, are paying for my room and board. That's disgusting. Why are my fellow New Yorkers paying for my room and board? Because I insisted that I have a right to something that I, in fact, do have a right to. That's madness
So
to me.
so so let
But
me
that's
ask
New
you
York.
this: before you got raided and charged with all of this, Did these gun laws that you're talking about, you were saying, talking about having ammunition and the different levels of criminality, I guess. Did those exist prior to your case, and were you aware of any of them?
I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware that. I mean, I was aware that New York had strict gun laws, but I thought those applied to people who were carrying guns around. In other words, if you're walking around and the police stop you for some reason, and they put you up against the wall and they frisk you and they find a firearm, you're in trouble unless you have a permit. I knew that.
Okay,
Um, and of course, I knew that prohibited people, right? That is felons, right?
right.
Weren't allowed to have firearms, right? But again, the idea that you were automatically a felon simply because you manufactured weapons in your house with no prior criminal record, that I had no idea. It was news to me.
And you
So
were
there
just
was
making them for fun because you're a geek. Sorry, but I'm a geek. I said earlier, I'm a geek too, so I'm allowed to say that. So
well, well, to be fair, it wasn't just for fun. I mean, we should talk a little bit about this. Once I started making ARs, I became fascinated with the engineering problems inherent in uh, making gas-operated semi-automatic rifles. So of course I was inhaling all these videos on YouTube, right? The guys making their own weapons, and starting to understand the kinds of failure modes that are possible with ARs, right?
right.
You're getting bolt bounce, you're undergassed, you're overgassed, you got failure to feed, failure to eject, so on and so forth. Um, and I started, on paper, kind of prototyping uh, different systems to kind of improve the state of the art of weapons design, right? So I came up with a theoretical framework for analyzing gas-operated semi-autos as circuits, as mass flow circuits. I call this cyclic energy flow. Um, I prototyped a system for registering shot reports on busy firing ranges using wearable electronics, dirt cheap electronics and software. I call that Osiris, Open Shot Registration System. I was developing designing, excuse me, a system for dry fire training, a more realistic dry fire training system. I call that Drift 360. Um, I was prototyping, or I should say developing, because I hadn't built anything yet, developing a system for measuring barrel resonance electronically instead of having to use a very expensive high-speed camera. I call that EMBER, electronic measurement of barrel resonance. And I started designing a system for biometrics, for actually um, analyzing what a shooter is doing with his or her body while they're, taking the weapon from retention to pressing out. And again, wearable sensors underneath your clothes, where the data is crunched by software, so you can surface the things that a firearms instructor would want to see and correct. And I call that BEST, biometrics enhanced shooter training. So I had a whole plan in mind. I mean, it was enormous fun making these weapons, but I also had a plan to kind of get my FFL. That's why I signed up for Rocket FFL before I got rated. I was learning about the different kinds of FFLs and what was necessary, because my plan was to buy a piece of land in New Hampshire somewhere. New Hampshire has special significance to me because my ex-wife, her family used to have a house there. Um, I wanted to buy a piece of land and set up my gun lab and get my FFL and start doing road shows, start actually trying to develop products for the military and the police. I've been inspired by people like Bill Geisler, who got his first contract building triggers for the U.S. Army sharpshooting team. I thought that was
Right.
the most important thing I'd ever heard. Right. You know, and he didn't. It's not like Bill Geisler had to go to Washington and go. Like he literally met a soldier at a shooting event, and showed this soldier the trigger he had that he'd made for his own weapon. The soldier's like, hey, you want to come to our trailer and talk to my commanding officer? Next thing you know, Bill Geisley's in business with the U.S. military. I thought that was mad cool, you know.
So I mean, I want to talk about, you know, because the importance of intention is a real thing, and your intentions were, I just want to help military and police and get better, be better at their jobs, at what they're doing, and you know, so there was absolutely no, they found no nefarious activity in any way, right? Like you said, they went through everything.
That's correct. Well, that's correct. And I should add, by the way, that, you know, usually when you hear that some guy's nabbed with weapons in his house or whatever, it's like, oh, he's got a manifesto. Well, I actually have a manifesto, you know, because remember, I've been doing conservative political commentary online for years at that point. And so I did have a manifesto. It's called the Foundationist Manifesto, because I'd come up with a conservative school of thought called Foundationism after I left the left. And so I have a very simple 10-point manifesto. See deeply, listen closely, reason honestly, speak clearly, act bravely, deny the self, defend the individual, respect tradition, face the present, cultivate the future. That's my scary manifesto, right?
Wow.
You can go on YouTube. You can look at the videos I was making as Carbon Mike. You can look at the interviews I was doing. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so yeah, this wasn't, you could, as I've said to people before, you could give the New York authorities grace and say, well, when they first heard about this thing, they didn't know who this guy Dexter Taylor was. Maybe he's dangerous. Maybe he's whatever. Okay, so we got to push the response really hard. Okay, Grant. So the SWAT team comes in hard. Okay, fine. But shortly after that, they had to have known. Once they seized my devices, bro. Once they subpoenaed my email records. Do you know what I'm saying? Once they checked my phone, once they checked, you know, they had to have known, oh, hey, hang on a second. This guy is not a problem. Aside from being clean in terms of his criminal record, he is not a problem. He's not a threat to civic order. Right?
It's unreal, man. I'm just sitting here going, wait a minute. The U.S. Constitution is in place for a reason. Now, I understand that the
Yes, sir.
states have authority to do certain things, and I don't know that they have the authority though to impinge on the U.S. And say, well, you know, yes, the Constitution applies to everything except for this one area. That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm not a lawyer, but logically it makes no sense.
Yes. I can tell you that they don't. They don't have the right to do those things. The Second Amendment is a civil right. I should say it protects a civil right. Because remember, the Second Amendment, the Bill of Rights doesn't give us any rights. The Bill of Rights starts with the assumption that we have these rights, that these rights adhere to us as human beings, and it simply prohibits the government from infringing on those rights. Okay, now, you know, these are civil rights.
Right.
And the states have a right, as you said, to make laws about firearms, even, but they don't have the right to violate the Constitution. They do not. Okay. And by the way, the recent the Supreme Court decision that was handed down in the Bruin case made it very clear that that now the test for the constitutionality of gun laws, of state gun laws, is very simple. Right? There's no more, we get to violate the Second Amendment because we have a crime problem. No, that's a separate matter. Right? It's that you have to look at the plain text of the Second Amendment and historical tradition. Now, the plain text is very plain, and in this country, we simply do not have a historical record of saying that you are a criminal because you're making weapons in your house. The fact is that from the beginning, from the start of this republic, even before the inception of this republic, right, most American firearms were made in American homes.
Right.
I mean, it's
Right.
obvious, right? So, right. So this is again, this is a political matter. And again, how can this happen? This is what happens when we cede the ground to liberals and progressives and lawless Democrats. This is what happens. This is what
So
happens
so
when we say, "Oh, let the cities, let the Democrats have the cities." This is what we
well
get, and this is
hold
why
on
we have to
hold
fight
on
these people everywhere. Go on. Yep.
hold on.
Yep.
I gotta back you up on this for a minute because
Sure.
I believe that it's written somewhere in the policies that if you are a black man, you're not allowed to say things like that.
Sorry, I forgot.
You said I forgot. Oh, that's so funny,
I
dude.
forgot.
I,
Sorry. I was just, it's like it escaped me for a while. Well, listen, but here's the good news, brother. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. Like I didn't vote for Joe Biden, so I guess that means I ain't black. Is that how that works?
yeah. That's awesome.
Who
Oh
knew?
my God.
Who knew?
That's so funny. So I I have a friend that has a huge X account, Zeke Arkham. He's actually in law enforcement in New York, and he's got a huge following on X. I'm gonna have to reach out to him and see if he has any thoughts or ideas. But he's been in law enforcement a long time, and he's been on my show. As a matter of fact, he's a great guy. I'm gonna connect you guys. But all right. I'm like my brain is mush over this. I'm so pissed off actually for you. Like it just and Cody and I were talking. I said, dude, he's like, this touched my heart and my soul, and I really just want to keep bringing attention to this and help Dexter. And man, I told you that too. It's heart wrenching to me that this is happening to you. It's crazy, actually. Like, I just don't understand how this happens in the United States. I mean, we live in a free freaking country, man. What is going on here?
Well, like I said, this is what these people want to do to all of us, all of my brethren out there, everywhere. This is what they want to do. Their ambition is total. I mean, listen. Here's some good news about my case. Here's some good news, right? Um, you no longer have to guess. What I mean is this: every now and then, you've been in two-way conversations before, and you've probably had the experience of talking to someone who's on the left side of things, and you say, "Well, where are you on the Second Amendment?" They say, "Well, I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe in common sense restrictions, right? Common sense gun laws." Okay,
Yeah.
so here's the good news. After my case, right? You no longer have to guess what they mean when they say they're in favor of common sense gun laws. What they mean is this. What they did to me is what they mean to do. That is their intention. It's plain now. It's clear. Because remember, I want to remind people that in New York City, New York State, we've had a policy under the current Attorney General of being very soft on certain types of things. So let's say for the purposes of the argument that yes, the laws on the New York State books defy the Constitution, defy the Second Amendment, fly in the face of the Supreme Court ruling in Bruin. Okay, but there's still a law in New York. Very well. But here's the thing: we have an Attorney General who, for example, essentially legalized shoplifting. Right?
Right. Right.
Am I lying? Am I mistaken? Or
No.
did she say, well, if you steal less than $900 worth of goods, we're not going to prosecute? Like, right? Okay. So
That's crazy.
there are certain kinds of laws that again they have a very soft touch with, and there are certain kinds of people that have a very soft touch with. But some right to armed self-defense. You know, they simply can't have that, because that essentially, having citizens who really believe in that, who really believe that the Second Amendment protects a civil right. That's a dagger at the heart of their agenda. They can't have that. And again, that's why my bail was so extraordinarily high. Like, I'm obviously not a flight risk. I mean, there have been people who've been granted little or no bail, right, who are obvious flight risks. You have someone who's in the country illegally, okay, and he beats up a police officer. Well, he has no local ties to speak of relative to whatever country he came from. The man is obviously a flight risk. Okay, he gets no bail. I'm a lifelong New Yorker, except for the 7 years I spent in Baltimore because I went down there to go to school. I've lived in Brooklyn since 1994. I've only had one, two, three, four addresses in Brooklyn.
Wow.
I'm sorry, three addresses in Brooklyn, right? So, all my family is here. All my family, my ex-wife, my daughter lives with my ex-wife. My parents live in Queens, right?
Wow.
So that's what I'm saying. This is very obviously political. Obviously so. I mean, hell, they switched prosecutors on us, bro. Like, the first prosecutor, the one who vouched for my moral character in writing to my attorney. Okay, they switched him out because they didn't like the optics of that. The judge that we had, they switched her out, and at the last minute, they gave us a judge who was married to the Brooklyn DA's top fundraiser.
Good God. So, hey, can you call back in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, let's keep going, man. I don't think we've got all the information out yet, so let's just keep going. And hey, I'm gonna mute your microphone. So as soon as you come back on, just unmute. Okay.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. I'll see you in a minute. Wow. Stay with us, you guys. This is insane. Like, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. If you have questions, I'm happy to ask Dexter anything that you'd like. This is crazy. This is the United States of America, and again, I don't think I'm not. If anything, I'm more of a center of the line kind of. I mean, I obviously, those that know me know which way I lean heavily, but I really believe in trying to figure out a way to bring this country together and stop with the division of left and right politics and have a conversation. But when people on the left are pulling the stuff they're pulling with this man, um, like, what is going on? And I would feel the same way if it was somebody on the right that had done this to somebody on the left. It doesn't even matter. Like, this is a good man, hardworking man, educated man, that's a geek that was literally just making, just for fun as a hobby, making firearms in his basement. And are you back now, Dexter? Okay. So so they changed prosecutors on you, and which is insane. Um, and they obviously that was more. Has anybody said, because I feel like that if President Trump were to make a phone call to people there, well, I don't know, they hate him, so maybe it wouldn't matter, but he does have control over cutting off the state of New York and their funding. Which I don't think is a terrible idea, but I don't know, man. This is crazy, dude. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, I certainly wouldn't mind. Listen, we have, a president who, for all his faults, is the first president I can think of who actually is treating Second Amendment rights as civil rights. I mean, he created a civil rights Second Amendment task force, right? Headed by Dillon, right? To go around and to investigate where the states or federal agencies are violating people's civil rights by violating the Second Amendment rights. So it would be, talking about what could be done. It would be great if the DOJ took New York State to court. I think it would be fantastic. At the very least, it would inflict maximum political embarrassment on the New York Democrats, and I'll take that. I'll take that. I mean, certainly I want to get out of here, but I also want very much my fellow Americans, especially my fellow Black Americans, who live in cities, especially who live in Democrat-run cities, just to be reminded that, well, first of all, that these are the same Democrats who've been telling us ad nauseum that because a certain president is in the White House, that white supremacists have been emboldened, right? And there's guys running around in MAGA caps right now who are hiding, disguised as trees and bushes, waiting to lynch me from the nearest streetlight.
Well, Dexter, as soon as we're finished, I'm headed to my local Klan meeting. So yeah, that's the way we roll.
Wait a minute. See, to me, that whole thing has to make sense. Like, so you're saying that there's bloodthirsty white supremacists everywhere, but nonetheless, we should be disarmed. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Like, so something in there. Someone's got to square that circle. If these Democrats really care about us the way they say they do, then why are they trying to disarm us in the face of what they say is an obvious threat from bloodthirsty white supremacists? Somebody make that make sense.
It does. You can't make sense out of that, man. You just can't. That's crazy.
You can't square that circle. Exactly.
No.
So this is the thing. I've been doing political commentary online for a long time, and I told people, I said, listen, I'm a politically homeless conservative, so you won't find me, making excuses for any party, even the Republican Party.
Right.
But I pointed out to people that, even though there are a lot of Republican influencers and some Republican politicians who speak to and about the Black electorate with disrespect. I mean, that's just true.
Yep.
It's also true that they're not the ones trying to disarm us. People talk about civil rights. They say, the Trump administration is doing this and that for civil rights because they're rolling back DEI. Well, a lot of my fellow Black folks, think that DEI is poison. A lot of us think that, well, actually, something, our kids can meet the standard, whatever the standard is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We can make the books harder. We're able to add value. We're able to make useful contributions and have made useful contributions to the life of this republic, without any do-gooders in Washington or elsewhere pleading our case for us. In other words, like, a lot of us are of the opinion that, hey Democrats, stop helping us. Like that's enough already. Stop it. You've been helping us. You've been helping us for over half a century, and all we've seen for it is death, poverty, and destruction. Now, there's no simple fix for what's wrong with our cities, because again, for example, we've declared war on the American family, starting with the Black family in the 1960s, under Democrats. So fixing that is going to take a while. But I'll say this, it's not, to me, as a conservative, I incline toward distrust of all politicians, regardless of party. But a political party that wants to disarm you is your enemy. That's plain. If you have a plan for my life, right? If you have a plan, I want to remake your life. I want to give you all that. And then he said, but first you have to give me all your weapons. Excuse me, what? What you saying? What?
Right.
What? You know, that I have to assume that plan is not delightful. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
so
Right.
this is more than anything else. This is what I want. I mean, that's what I want to get out of here. But again, this is not just about me.
Right.
This is clearly not just about me. Right. This is about us, and this is about what we're prepared to allow in our republic. Do we take these things seriously or not? Do we take these matters seriously? Do we take the Constitution seriously or not? That's it.
I'm so disturbed by this. My brain is sitting here going, okay, how do we get Dexter out of the joint there? Like, how do we get you out of there? We got to get you out of there. Holy crap. So,
well, I mean,
and you're in a maximum security prison, right? You said?
Yes, this is a Class A maximum security facility. Because again, because I owned firearms, I am a violent felon.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It doesn't sound any. It's funny about that phrase. It doesn't sound any less stupid, no matter how many times you say it.
I know, right? It doesn't. Because I live in the great state of Texas, man. That dog does not hunt here. I'm just telling you, it wouldn't happen.
God bless Texas. But I mean, look. Even my brethren down in Texas. I mean, when I say we have to fight these people everywhere, I mean like even in Texas, you got to watch yourself. You got to consolidate your gains. You got to make sure this kind of thing doesn't creep in, because we've had things. I mean, look at Colorado. Colorado used to be a red state, right?
Yeah.
Colorado used to be a red state.
Yeah.
What happened to Colorado, right? Oregon. What happened to Oregon? You see what I'm saying? So that's why, when people who know me and who know my commentary know that this is a horse I'm beating all the time. Conservatives have to lose this very bad habit of kind of worshiping their zip codes. Beyond the fact that it's idolatry, right, and therefore sinful.
Right.
The fact is that we can't. The strategy of conservatives cannot be to simply retreat to their solitudes and say, we're going to watch the rest of it burn, and I'm going to be what it's. There is no such thing, brother. Okay.
No, I agree with you. I agree.
Home. This is our home. We are one republic. Okay.
Yep.
And we're one people, and we're in the fight of our lives. It's not just me again, because listen. We're talking about the two-way right now. But let's be plain. This isn't just about our political struggle. Isn't just about gun rights, right? It's about family rights.
When you were called, sorry, there's a huge delay. I apologize. When you were calling, when you were in the middle of calling back in, I was saying, I've never really identified. I mean, I'm a registered Republican, but I've never identified as I fully support all of this, or I'm more of a how do we the division in this country that is literally caused by politicians, by the way. The division in this country is not sustainable. Like, it's not sustainable. Just like racism is not sustainable. Y'all need to go educate yourselves and get the freak over it. How do we bring both in your opinion? I want to hear your opinion. How do we bring people together, whether they're black, white, yellow, orange? I don't care what color you are. Like, how do we bring both sides together and come together in the middle and have a conversation without the division and the violence and all of the insanity?
Okay. I would say this. First of all, let me go back and kind of disagree very mildly with something you said. You said the division is caused by politicians. I don't quite agree with that. If we go back to scripture, right, we see very clearly that one brother fighting another, one brother slaying another. Okay, for the stupidest possible reason, by the way, is literally the second oldest story in the book.
Right.
Okay.
Cain and Abel.
So division is right, exactly. So division is baked into the cake with us, just as sin is baked into the cake with us, just like conflict is baked into the cake with us. So I don't think we have to eliminate division. I think rather what we need to do is to just draw the circle a little wider. Okay. In other words, like we have. In other words, we have to reintroduce the concept of the sacred. Okay, because just so let me just go wide a little bit. The Republican Party, I think, got onto a very wrong track back in the 80s, when they decided that, or they seemed to decide that what was important was simply economic matters, right, and nothing else. Right. When they kind of went down this libertarian pathway, and I have a lot of friends who are libertarians, but libertarianism is not a complete doctrine. That's the problem with libertarianism. It's not a complete doctrine. You can't tell me rationally that man should be free unless you first have a concept of what man is. Is man an accident? Is he just talking meat? Because if man is just an accident, then there's no particular reason why man should be free. Now, if man is sacred, that's different. That's different. If man has a spark of the divine in him, that's different. Now you have a complete doctrine. And, by the way, now you have something to fight for together. In other words, it's the concept of the sacred, right? Really, it's a theological concept that makes civilizations, that will give you a civilization that's capable of defending itself. I get to do whatever I want, just leave me alone in my cabin in the woods, is all fine and good, but that's not a fighting creed. Okay? They shall not transgress our sacred places. That's a fighting creed. So I think one of the things conservatives need to do is to reintroduce that. Forget about, laughing at people for how they vote. In fact, stop caring about how people vote or how they voted.
Right.
Stop caring about that. Stop caring about where people live. Stop insulting people's homes. Stop calling New York a shithole just because it gets you some clicks on social media. It's like, what things are sacred to us? And how will we defend them? That's the question. Because you know something? I really do believe, that all men are brothers. But you don't always get along with your brother. You don't always get along with your brother. Sometimes y'all have to fight. Okay, now, so you and I are brothers. Okay, and you know something? It may happen that, we get into it because this and that. Oh, you took my Legos. Oh, mom always liked you better. But next thing you know, we rolling around on the front lawn, fighting and fussing. Okay, fine. All well and good. But if we see some rando walking toward our house with a jerry can full of gasoline and a Zippo lighter, I hope that you and I know we have to put aside the grievance, whatever it is, and stand to like men and defend what is sacred. And so, and here's the good news. Here's the good news. The Democratic Party is giving us all kinds of reasons to stand to and defend what is sacred, because they're coming after what's sacred. There's, something, your kids aren't really your kids, bro. Your kids aren't really your kids. Really, they're our kids. And so we get to teach them. We get to teach them whatever we want to in public schools, right? We get to indoctrinate them. We get to sexualize them. We get to mutilate them if we think it's a good idea. And you, father, stay out of it. That's their program. Okay, so to me, that's enough. That's enough right there. Even before you come to the sacred right to armed self-defense, that's enough right there to say, listen, I don't care what party you're with. I don't care what you voted for, whatever. But it's like we need to stand to and defend the sacred, defend the family. And I think if conservatives focus on that, then they've got a chance. Because look, there is, in fact, a huge silent majority in, for example, the Black electorate, the Latino electorate, the Muslim electorate. What did we see this past November? What did we see? We saw Trump and his team carving off voters that all the analysts were saying couldn't be carved away, right?
Correct. Yep.
What does that tell us? That tells us that there is in fact a vast silent majority. There's a lot of people who've tuned out of politics because they're just disgusted, but they can be reached. But in order to reach them, here's the flip side. Here's the bad news. In order to reach the silent majority in, for example, New York, you have to come to us with something other than a noun, a verb, and plantation. That's not really a pitch. I'm very sorry. No.
Right.
I
agree.
You have to come with something deeper than that, something better than that, and I think it can be done. And the current president showed you all the way, right?
Yeah.
But it's up to the rest of the populist conservatives, right, to actually put that into action. And again, first, before anything else, it requires a leap of imagination, of theological imagination, to imagine that we're all brothers, to imagine that we have one home and one family as Americans, and then to fight for that and to defend the sacred. And if we do that, there's no guarantees. No.
Wow.
No. And to do that, we have to. I'm sorry. To do that, if we do that, we have a shot. No guarantees, but we've got a shot at turning this thing around. And the other thing I'll say is that, again, no strategist. If we're in the fight of our lives, it's a fight to reclaim our republic. No strategist in his right mind looks at the battlefield and says, "Yeah, we're just going to give up all the high density areas. We're going to give up all the places with the most internet and the most commerce and the most. We're just going to give those to the enemy, and then we'll this fight." That's ridiculous. Okay, so the Republicans have to stop doing that. We have to fight these people everywhere, or we're going to lose, because their ambition is total. So if your ambition is just partial, right? If you just want to play defense and they're on 24/7 offense, bro, you're going to lose.
But let me ask you this. So I have a lot of friends that and good friends that lean left, and they're probably more liberal than they are conservative. And for those that are listening that are, because I guarantee you that there's some that are going to hear this, watch this, or are watching or listening right now. They just haven't commented or said anything. To the liberals that how do you address them? How do you address the people who are leading left or on the left that are like, dude, you were breaking the law. It doesn't matter if you didn't know you were breaking the law. You were still breaking the law. Like, you deserve everything you got. And I'm just being the devil's advocate. I'm not saying that you did, because I don't think you did at all. What do you say to them? What's your argument?
Very simple. And thanks for asking the question. What I would say is, if I was feeling diplomatic, I wouldn't say this. If I was feeling spicy, I'd say, very well, hypocrite. What if New York State had passed a law that said black people have to go into public buildings using the colored entrance? And I decided to go into public buildings using the regular entrance, through the front door. And I've been arrested and charged with criminal trespass. What would you say then? Would you say, "Oh, well, you knew that you, being black, had to use the colored entrance, so I don't see what the problem is. I don't care. You broke the law." See, no liberal would say that. They wouldn't say that.
No.
Right? Because because when it comes to certain civil rights, they get very weepy on a moment's notice, right?
Yeah.
You hear people talk about, they're trying to reform the voter laws because they're trying to do whatever the motive is, right? Liberals will get very weepy instantly. It's voting rights. Well, voting is a civil right. You seem to have no problem, right? Okay, so essentially, I would say that the reason, if someone says that to me, what I say to them is, the reason you say that is because of your degraded and debased conception of what a civil right is. And I would say furthermore that the other reason you say that is because you have a debased and degraded concept of what the civil rights struggle has been. You think the civil rights struggle was just all about black folks marching in the street and singing Negro spirituals and getting our ass beat by police until good white liberals show up and save the day. That's not how it was. Okay? Black people in America have a long tradition of armed self-defense. Who do you think was keeping the Klan off us in the country, in the counties down south where the Democrats were running things, right?
Right.
How do you think we kept the Klan off us? Harsh words? No. Armed self-defense.
That's right.
Okay. And as a matter of fact, there's the other thing that the liberals are always talking about institutional racism, right? And talking about white supremacy. Okay. Gun control is the prototypical instance of institutionalized racism and institutionalized white supremacy. The purpose of the very first gun control laws passed in this country was to deprive Black Americans of the means of the right and the means of armed self-defense. That is what it comes from. So again, someone says that to me, I'm like, okay, well, very well. You're a hypocrite. You're lying. You're a fraud. You don't really believe. You don't have the courage of your own convictions. You know, and then that's what I'd say. You know, because of course, no one would defend. No one said. I mean, you know, if you ask, what do you think about what Rosa Parks did? Well, you know, she does, but you know, they wouldn't say, well, she knew that was against the law, so she deserves what she got. No sane liberal would say that, but it's because they don't think that Second Amendment rights are civil rights. And by the way, they've been pushing this narrative that the Second Amendment is only for white folks, right? And they're hoping that will stick. They're hoping it'll stick.
So you know, I think that there's also a lack of, I'll just say it, a lack of education. I think there's probably a lot of people that don't realize that the KKK, for example, was formed by Democrats. It was created by I mean, I don't know. I just think
it was basically the armed wing. Yeah, it was the armed wing of the Democratic Party. Yes. Well, there is that. But here's the thing: you don't even have to look. I would say that that's true. But we have to be honest. It's also true that when you are trying to make a pitch, right? Again, we're talking about how to win hearts and minds, because that's politics. How to win hearts and minds.
Right.
And the problem is Republicans have not all of them, but many of them, and many of the influences, the big ones especially, have kind of given up on changing hearts and minds, and they're content to just throw insults. And you see, I think about this with a private sector mentality. Remember, I worked in the private sector. That's where I have a 30-some-odd year career in the software industry. So in the private sector, if you know that there's a swath of people who aren't buying your product and are buying the competition's product, well, then the one thing you're not going to do is insult them. Like no competent salesperson will do this. They'll go and say, hey, give me a chance to win your business. And if the answer is no, you say, well, listen, thank you for your time. You don't then say, oh, well, I should have expected, because you're obviously one of those stupid people who buys the competition. You don't say that. You say, listen, thank you for your time. I'd like to come back in 3 months or 6 months or a year, whatever, and try for your business again. Okay? And speaking of the silent majority, in the private sector, if we see that, if I'm in the Red Widget company, Red Widgets Incorporated, and my competition is Blue Widgets Incorporated, and I notice that maybe 40, 50, 60% of the people in a given sales region have never bought a widget of any color, I see that as an opportunity. Yeah. And if I have a sales exec, right, who's assigned to that region, and I point that out to him and I say, hey, what are we going to do? We need to get our numbers up. Hey, there's this huge number of people who haven't bought a widget. Can we go talk? And if he tells me it's not worth it, it's not worth our time to go and talk to the undecided or the people who. If he tells me that, he's fired.
Right.
He's fired. Clean out your desk, hit the bricks, don't let the front door hit you with a good Lord split. You're out of here.
Right. Right.
I'm looking at you, Charlie Kirk. I'm looking at you, Charlie Kirk. Okay, because a lot of, again, disrespect. A lot of this, we shouldn't even bother to go after the black vote. Well, why not? Why? I've run the numbers on turnout, by the way. I've run the numbers on turnout. And everyone has been repeating a talking point, which is numerically false, which is that most black people vote for Democrats. No, it's that of the black people who turn out and vote, most of that turnout tends to go to Democrats. But again, if you go get the numbers yourself and run them. Don't take my word for it. Go run the numbers. What you find is that in many of our major cities, in many of our blue cities, you may have like a 30, 40, 50% turnout rate. Okay, that leaves 50, 60, 70% of the black electorate who hasn't turned out. They're not voting. Okay, is anyone talking to them? Is anyone making a pitch to them? Or are they just saying, well, you live in a shithole and you're stupid, so enjoy. Right?
I like what Trump did. He went to he went to the Bronx, didn't he? Wasn't in the Bronx or wherever he was.
That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, I mean, whatever you say about him, he's got a lot of heart, and he just doesn't care. He's like, you know something? Yeah, I'm going here. I'm going to talk to these people. Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what it takes.
That's what it takes. That's what it takes. And again, it's important not because, again, you could do this for entirely selfish and cold-blooded reasons. You don't have to do it because you care about me personally. We need to stop these people.
Yes.
We need to stop these people. Okay, so you do what it takes. Okay? And if it means talking to people who may have voted for the opposition and trying to swing, then you do that. And if it means talking to people who haven't voted in the last 5 years, then you do that. And if it means modifying your rhetoric so it's less disrespectful so you have a chance to make an actual pitch, then you do that. Okay?
Yep.
Because I can tell you, by the way, having lived in New York my whole life, and having come up in a working class black community in New York, I have never.
You have 1 minute left.
I've never talked to a working class black person who had any particular use for the Democratic Party. They just tolerate them. That's the devil we know.
Yeah. Good God.
Right, but,
do you want to call? Do you want to call back?
I'm gonna drop and come. Yeah, I'm gonna drop and come back soon. Okay. Yeah, I'll be right back.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Dexter Taylor, everybody. That's who we're talking to today. And I'm gonna remove him for a minute. So he'll be right back. And I do want to say that Dexter is, I don't know how far off he is now, but he has a give, send, go. He's not buying houses or cars or anything. He's incarcerated in the state of New York in a Class A violent felon prison. Because him being a, hey Nano, good to see you. Dexter was, is a geek, and he was the senior data analyst for a startup company in the railroad industry. But he decided he wanted to learn how to make firearms because he just geeked out on it. He started making them in his basement. He never fired one single round through anything that he ever made. They never, ever, ever left his house. They never left his house in New York City. He got raided, and they seized all of his firearms. Matter of fact, let me just share. I'm not going to play the video, but I'm going to share my my screen so you guys can see This is the C's that they did right there. You can see what they seized. I don't want to play the video because I'm afraid that it'll. Oh, sorry. I guess I should add it to the screen. But there. I'm not going to play the video of the CBS News thing. But if you go to YouTube and type in, excuse me, type in Dexter Taylor into YouTube, the CBS thing will pop up, and it shows them, interviewing Dexter, and it's really the only mainstream media attention that Dexter has received. So go check that out when you get a chance. I'm not going to play the video just because I don't want YouTube or Facebook or any of the others to take this stream down. I think it's far too important. So Dexter is back. Let me add him back to the stage here. Dexter, welcome back. Thank you.
Thank you,
The
sir.
Queen Bee is on here saying this excellent interview, Ken. We really appreciate you bringing him to the forefront, of course. And this, we're going on 2 hours now that we've been on here, but I think this is important. I want to talk a little bit about Dexter, if you can. I'd like to talk a little bit about the process that you have that you're going through to file an appeal, and the money
Sure.
it takes to pay these lawyers, and you have a give send go that a lot of people are contributing to. I highly encourage people to go over to give send go. I'm going to pop a link up that Carlton Jones Jr. put up, that is the link. If you're on Facebook, you can click that. But all you have to do, because I found it, I just went to givesendgo.com and typed in Dexter Taylor, and it came right up. But Dexter, talk a little bit about the process of filing the appeal, and what you've been through trying to get that done. And by the way, I'm so disgusted right now. I'm just like, I want to. Yeah. Anyway, I better not say what I want to do. Go ahead.
Well, thank you, brother. So, I mean, yeah, it's been an interesting process. I'll say first that, we have a top-notch legal team. My lawyer's name is Venu Varghese. Law firm is Varghese and Associates. He's a conservative. He's been on television. I think he's been on Fox a few times, offering legal commentary, what have you. But, when my ex-wife, God bless her, found him for me, I mean, I didn't, I just called her and said, listen, I'm in jail and I need an attorney, and and that's who she found. And it's like, I won the lottery. He's great. He understood right away why I wasn't going to take any plea deals. And he understood right away what this case meant. Right. Because he was thinking about the case, not just as a lawyer, but as a conservative, as a fellow conservative.
I'm sorry, I need to jump in real quick. The Queen Bee, you put, please report. Do not report. Do not report. I think she meant to put, please repost this live stream. Don't report it. Repost it. So I just want, in case anybody saw that. Anyway, she's awesome. But yeah, I think she had a typo there. But go ahead. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so in addition to our trial, our court costs during the trial, we had to spend thousands of dollars simply to buy our transcripts. That was the whole thing. I mean, who knew? I didn't know that, like, when the state takes you to trial, at least in New York State, you don't just get your transcripts. Even though it's now just an electronic document, right? It's not reams of paper, it's just a file. But you don't get it for free. You have to pay. So we pay thousands of dollars. The state tried to overcharge us by like something around 100% for the transcripts. And my lawyer, God bless him, made a big fuss about it. But even when we cleared it up, it was thousands of dollars for the transcript. And then, so, he and my team actually wrote the appeal. And now it's going to take more money to file the appeal. So long story short, the number on my give send go might be deceiving, because people look at it and say, "Oh yeah, there's a lot of money. We run through all that." So the next milestone is to get the money together to file this appeal that's already been written. And then after that, the process is that we really it's a hurry up and wait, because we have to run through all the New York State appeals courts, in which we are not likely to get any Second Amendment relief, and we have to do that so that we can get to the federal appeals courts, where we have a chance of getting some Second Amendment relief. We may get some relief on some of the irregularities in my trial. I'm skeptical, but it might happen, right? Because again, what I was going to say earlier was that, you know, the judge in our case, the judge they switched in at the last minute, really acted as a third prosecutor in the trial. I mean, it was obvious. It was obvious that she had orders, right, to make sure that this went a certain way, and she did. You know, she was very successful. And you know, you're free to contact my attorney and ask him the details of what went down in the courtroom. But yes, it was egregious. You know, everything from trying to rehabilitate obviously biased potential jurors during the voir dire process to, you know, interrupting his opening statement multiple times with no reason and no admonition given, to lodging numerous objections in the course of testimony. Like I've never seen a trial. Apparently, judges have the right to do this, but I've never really seen a court case where the objections come from the judge. Usually, it's like if the prosecution's up, then the defense will object to something, or if the defense is up, then the prosecution will object to something. But in this case, it's like we're not objections coming from the bench. That was odd.
Wow.
Oh, that was strange. You know, I'll give you an example. You know, one of the witnesses against me was a gentleman who was with the NYPD. He worked in the permitting department. I don't remember his name, but again, my lawyer can give you all the details. And it's in the transcript. But this gentleman, you know, my lawyer was cross-examining him, and he says, well, you know, what's your job at the permitting department? He said, well, I own the records, right? I own the records. Very well. How many people applied for a gun permit in 2024? I don't know. Well, okay, well, how many people applied for a gun permit in 2023? I don't know. Well, why don't you know? I thought you owned the record. Objection from the judge.
Oh my God!
Right? Because
oh my God!
God forbid that we dig into. God forbid that we dig into the fact that under the surface, we still have a may issue permitting regime. And by the way, his testimony made it clear that we still have a may issue, not a shall issue, permitting regime, right, in New York State. So, you know,
wow.
There's all kind of, and of course, you know, the famous quotes from this judge about the Second Amendment. You know, Second Amendment claims will not be permitted. In New York, the Second Amendment is not the law. We can't allow the jurors to be confused. This is not the forum for Second Amendment issues. This case is not about the Second Amendment. That issue, meaning the Second Amendment, has no place in this trial, right? So that's kind of what we're up against. And again, we knew that we stood a good chance of losing in trial court. We know how that goes.
Right.
But again, I think it's important that, again, given that has happened, I just want, what I really want is just shine a very bright light on that whole process. You know, again, the Brooklyn DA said shortly after I was indicted, long before my trial began, that, you know, we are going to make an example of Dexter Taylor. That was Eric Gonzalez saying that. And you know something? I want to help him. I want to help Eric Gonzalez make an example of me. I'm glad he said that, because as a matter of fact, this is an example. This is an example of what Democrats and progressives want to do to law-abiding citizens everywhere. So voters in all 50 states, please take note. This is the example. Courtesy of our friend, Eric Gonzalez, Brooklyn DA, right? This is the example of what they want to do. So, you know, go therefore and act accordingly. You know, when election time comes around, go to the polls and act accordingly, right? Vote accordingly.
I'm like, So I'm gonna share your Give Send Go page up on the screen right now. I would love it if everybody watching just hear me out on this. Just go donate, even if it's $5. If you can only donate $5, donate $5. Donate $10. Donate $25. Five, I think, is the minimum that they'll allow you to donate. But go donate something. He hasn't even had a donation in 3 days on this, so let's get some donations in here to help Dexter. If it was anybody, and Dexter, you said it earlier, and I'm gonna bring it up again. I mean, if this can happen to you, a you know, it's not like you were some homeless dude or terrorist that came into the country illegally. You've been a lifetime New Yorker living in New York. You were the chief or head data analyst of a company, employed. You just started. You were geeking out on learning how to make firearms in your basement, and they've
Mm-hmm.
completely. To me, it seems like there was some kind of a probably more than one backroom conversation that these people had saying let's make an example out of him no matter what. Let's make sure that
Yeah,
he is
I
convicted
believe that.
no matter what.
Well, it's interesting you say that. My mom thinks that there was a deeper kind of political motive behind all this. I don't know that I agree with her, but that's what she thinks. Because so a few years ago, I did. Okay, there's a documentary that's been released in the American market. It's called The Great American Race Game, and it's about the true history of the Democratic Party. And I did the voiceover narration. If you go, I think it's still available on Amazon Prime. I think it was made by my friend Martin Durkin, who's a UK documentary producer, filmmaker. I guess you call him a conservative. Um, Definitely a big fan of America, fan of the Second Amendment, fan of all things that we would consider good and righteous. Yeah, he tapped me to do the voiceover. I did that voiceover narration as Carmen Mike. So if you were to get that video from Amazon Prime, you would hear my voice on the narration. Now that video I think it won Best Foreign Documentary at the Anthem Film Festival in 2022, which is in Las Vegas, I believe. And so anyway, long story short, my mom thinks a bit that the New York Democrats know about this, and that they're mad. You know what I'm saying? Because again, it tells the true story of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's the case, but there were obviously backroom discussions, very obviously. Because again, whatever the case is, look, they can't allow. Well, I guess in their mind, they couldn't allow someone to challenge their political agenda. And their political agenda involves making sure that people are disarmed and afraid. Because, see, if you have a population that is disarmed and afraid, then you can go on to use street crime as a kind of a clearing instrument, right?
Yeah.
To crash real estate prices, right? To move people out of a certain part of the city, so that then your friends can move in and make a killing on real estate. You can do all these things, right? If you have a population that's scared and defenseless. The other thing is that if people are actually allowed to defend themselves and defend their homes, what have you, well then they might start to ask themselves what they're paying you for. Right? I mean, remember, This is New York City. This is not a city where everything is running perfectly and they happen to be stepping on people's rights. That would be different. It would be bad, but it would be different, right? This is a situation where if people don't feel safe because they're not safe. They're not safe in their houses, not safe on the subways, for God's sake. right? Not safe on the
Yeah.
streets. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Infrastructure is crumbling,
it's like the
right?
guy. It's
Property
like the
taxes are,
sorry, it's
sorry.
like the guy that wasn't that the New York subway where the dude was
Yeah.
defending himself. The other dude died, and like they persecuted the
Oh, that wasn't
shit
the
out of
subway.
him.
Oh yeah. Oh, that wasn't the subway. That was in a bodega. That was my man Jose Alba, right?
Okay, yeah,
Jose
yeah, yeah,
Alba was working in that bodega, and this clown comes in, going to try to beat up an old man. Goes
yeah.
behind the counter to where the guy is, tries to beat this guy up, whatever, and Jose Alba grabbed the weapon and ventilated the guy. Okay, well, he got what he got. That's what
Right,
the common sense interpretation of those events is that he got what he got. Okay,
yeah,
because you had no reason to go and put your hands on this old man when he was just there working. Right. Okay.
right,
Now, Alvin Bragg, right, the Manhattan DA, decided that he was going to put Jose Alba in the jackpot for manslaughter because again they
crazy.
don't believe in self-defense. They don't believe in self-defense. Why? Because if you can defend yourself, okay, and if the principle of righteous self-defense is normalized, then eventually people are going to be like, well, hang on a second, what are we paying you all this money for? Why are we paying all
Right,
these taxes for? They're the highest property taxes in maybe in the country, or it's certainly in the top 5 or top 10. And what are we getting from this, right? So yeah, people who can defend their homes and their lives and their property start to look at the world differently, and they
yep,
don't look at the world like dependence, right? And the Democratic Party is all about dependency. They're all about dependency and power and control.
right, yep,
And again, that's what makes them that's what makes them the enemy. You'll never hear me saying that the Republican Party is the paragon of virtue, anything like that. I'm saying that that the people who want to actually do this kind of thing to you, that they are the enemy. And by the way,
yep,
one more thing. I've been ranting for a while. Let me just point out one more thing. It's that recently, in the wake of the wave of kind of immigration enforcement actions and so on and so forth, it has struck me that many of these lefties are treating privileges as if they were rights, and treating rights as if they were privileges. I mean, see, that's the thing. Because talking about having weapons in your home as a law-abiding citizen, it's like, that's a right. If you have to ask the government's permission, that's a privilege. But on the
right,
other hand, coming to this country and making your home in it, that's a privilege. That's a privilege. It's not a right. You have to ask permission. Right? But
correct.
these people are treating these political hacks in Washington and elsewhere. Well, no longer in Washington, but you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah,
they've been treating immigration as a right, and they're happy to treat self-defense, armed self-defense, as a privilege. It's not a privilege. It's a
well,
civil right.
and listen, it wasn't even like you were in some form of self defense. You were literally just
No, correct.
I mean, I know it was you weren't a hack, but you were a weekend hack, just trying to like do
Yeah,
something, for
yeah,
fun and
yeah. Cool.
as a hobby, and you're making firearms and never fired a single
Mm-hmm.
round, and it's just
Nope.
insane. This is insane. Like,
That's
so
correct.
listen, I
That's
do
correct.
need to wrap this up, Dexter. I'm
Mm-hmm.
so grateful that you came on and you spent all the time you've spent with us. I'm gonna do everything I can. I I'm very connected, so I'm gonna do everything that I can to bring more attention to your case, and I hope that people will go to your Give Send Go. Just go over to Give Send Go on the computer. It's in the upper left hand corner. There's a little search thing. Type in Dexter Taylor. It's the first thing that pops up. And give some money if you would. Just $5, $5, $10, 20, 50, whatever you can do. to help this guy. I mean, this is crazy, y'all. This is nuts. This is the United States of America, and we have a good man, Dexter Taylor, sitting in a state penitentiary with violent criminals who are in there for murder and all kinds of other things, just for being a weekend guy, having fun, learning how to make his own firearms in his basement. And by the way, not one of those firearms ever breathed air outside of his house. So, like, it's just crazy. So, please do what you can, share this out, get more eyeballs on this, do what you can as far as his Gibson go. Go over there and help out as much as you can. And Dexter, man, you're in my thoughts and prayers, brother. I'm so sorry this is happening to you, but thank you for standing up for all of our rights.
Hey, thank you, brother. God bless you for doing this. Thank you for bringing attention to to this case. Thank you for taking an interest. I would just add to what you said that there's something else your listeners can do that doesn't cost any money, which is to spread the word, right? Of course, I want to get out of here and be with my family again and be with my people again. But failing that, um, I will at least take inflicting maximum political embarrassment on Democrats. I'll take that. So the more light we shine on this case, the better, right? The more light we shine on this, the better, right?
Yeah.
They did this because they could, right? Because they believe that might makes right. Very well. Insist that they make it make sense, right? Force them to justify what they did. Force them to square what they did with their rhetoric about loving black folks so much. So force them to square this, right? Here I am, right? A black New Yorker who's into STEM, who has a career in STEM, right?
Yeah.
Force them to reconcile that with the way they get weepy every time. So, well, there's not enough black people in STEM. We need to do more. Force them to reconcile this with their policy of quote unquote helping us, right?
Yeah.
So spread the word. Conservative influencers in your circle, podcasters. I'm always down to talk to any of my strong conservative brethren, any of my two-way brethren. And again, thank you and God bless you for doing this, brother. I really appreciate it.
Man, God bless you too, I'll do it again if you want. I'll do it as often as we need to. I'm disgusted. I find it absolutely appalling. I had a run in. I almost literally drove right into a traffic officer. She was not very happy when I was in Manhattan. I was on 34th Street and it was like Christmas, and I'm FaceTiming my wife trying to show her because it was my first time ever there.
Uh-oh.
I'm driving. I almost hit a traffic cop. Oh man.
Man.
But
You're a lucky man. You should have gone home and played the lottery.
I know. Well, it's that. I'll tell you though, they sent me a bill with a fine on the bill for a toll, and I'm like, why are you fining me? This is the first time I've ever received. So I call and I get into this argument with some young dude, and he's like, "We'll suspend your license." I'm like, "You can't suspend my license. I don't live there, you moron." And I'm like, "I'll pay the original toll, but I'm not paying your fine. Like, this is the first thing I've ever seen." But and he's like, "No, you have to either that." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm not." So I think there's probably a warrant out for my arrest in New York City. I don't know, for some $20 toll. I'm like, good Lord. Anyway.
I'm consorting with traffic outlaws.
Right. I know. I'm like, dude, I'll pay the original fee, but I'm not paying a late or a fine or whatever the heck. $200 fine for a $27 toll or something. I'm like, yeah, no. How about no? Anyway, so dude, you're in my heart, you're in my thoughts and prayers. Stay safe in there, man. And we'll do everything we can out here to get the word out. Everybody listening or watching, please keep Dexter in your prayers and help as much as you can in every way you can. The best way you can help is to share the crap out of this And if you know any other big podcasts or big podcasters that would be willing to host Dexter, reach out to me and I can connect you with the right people. And Dexter, you rock, brother. You're really an amazing human.
Hey,
Thank you.
hey, thank you, brother. I appreciate you. God bless you, and thank you for the prayers as well. Keep those prayers coming, because this old sinner needs, needs as much help as he can get.
Yeah, we all do. We all do. Amen to that. All right, y'all. Have a
Yes,
great
sir.
day, Dexter. Stay safe, man, and know that we're praying for you.
All right, brother. Take care.
All right. Thank you. You too. Bye bye. So that was Dexter Taylor, y'all. Just please share this out. Go over to Give Send Go and just search his name on there. There's a little search icon at the top. Search Dexter Taylor and let's bring a lot of attention. Share this out to everyone that you know, and let's help this guy because he needs help. He needs our help. He's wrongfully incarcerated in the state of New York, and definitely lawfare involved, and that's just absolutely insane. This is the United States of America. Let's get this under control. Y'all have a great day. Thank you for watching. Thank you for everybody who shared and all the comments and love and support. Appreciate each and every one of you. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you.